Hey guys, so I thought I would pop in today and just do you a journal page tutorial using my stamps for ETS 34. So these were the October release, so they released last year in October, but I know a lot of people do look at them and wonder what you can do. So I'm just going to do you a quick tutorial on a journal page that you can use them on. So first thing I'm going to do is just go in, and I paint with my fingers. Obviously you don't have to, but I'm just going to go in and get some colour down on my page. Okay, so I'm just going to go in, get the colour going on, and I don't worry, you don't need to worry what this looks like. Okay, so don't get hung up on trying to make it all nice and neat and tidy. It really doesn't matter at this point what this underlayer looks like. Okay, so you just want to get your whole page, and I usually go in, you can do as many colours as you want, but I usually go in with one colour at a time and then just fill in the spaces. So we're just going to go in. Let me just reach across and get my cloth, sorry, so I can wipe my hand in between. What colour shall I do next? Let's do some pink. And you can always dry your colours in between, so if you do pick colours that you know are going to clash then and might produce brown, then you can always go in between and dry off each colour individually. So you can see I'm just putting down patches of colour all over the page. And as I said, it doesn't matter how neat and tidy this is. I say it in all my classes, but your first layer on your pages is literally just your colour. It's about getting colour down onto the page. Okay, so let's go in with the next. Let's add a little bit of the brighter pink, I think. Just filling in all the gaps, and you can see it doesn't take too long. If you don't want to paint with your fingers, by all means don't. You can do this layer. It really doesn't matter whether you do it with a paintbrush, whether you do it with your fingers, whether you do it with a brayer, sponge. It really doesn't matter. It's not going to make any difference to the finished look. So just bear that in mind, that you can use any anything you like. Okay. And you know, it doesn't have to be patches, you could do stripes of colour. It's not going to make any difference to the finished look. Okay, so I'm just going in, you can see I'm just filling in where there's gaps. The thing with using the paper artsy paints as well is that they dry really quickly, so if you only put it on in thin layers, you don't have to worry too much about colours blending and making mud, because by the time you get to that point, the colours have already dried. So something like the pinks and the greens, if they're mixed together, would give you a really horrible muddy colour. But because the pink is pretty much already dry, I don't really have to worry about that. And you can see I'm quite evenly spreading out colour over the whole page, so that I've got a real mix of colour going on all over. So last colour now. Let's go in. That will do. Don't really need any more than that. You just want to make sure you've got no white spaces. Okay, so I'm just going to give that a quick dry, just so that I can actually start stamping over the top. we've got that dry, what we want to do next is you're going to pick, so we're going to take our stamps, you're going to pick one of your circle stamps, and it really doesn't matter which one you choose. You'll get lots of variations depending on how you, the order that you stamp in. So I'm going to start with one of the bolder stamps. I've made sure that my ink pad is nice and inked up. I want to make sure that I get a good impression. Okay, so I'm just going in with the first one, and I'm going to go in, I'm just eyeballing it, so I'm just doing it roughly in the centre of the page. If you really want to measure, by all means you can measure, okay, but I'm not going to worry too much. I'm just going to make sure that it's near enough, and I'm starting near the centre so that as I move out to either side it will be quite even on both sides. Obviously if you start at the top and just work down, you might end up with half a stamped image at one end. So I'm just going in. Again, you could draw a line. If you're worried about getting everything lined up, you could draw a line so that you know where your line is. I'm just going to do it by eye. Okay, so I'm just going in. And what you have to remember is these are rubber stamps. So rubber stamps, obviously you can't see through to be able to line up. What you have to remember is that when you're lining up, the image will always be slightly closer than you think it is, or slightly further away, sorry, than you think it is. So all I'm doing is just overlapping a tiny bit as I'm stamping down, and that should give me a nice close image. And remembering as well that these are all hand drawn. So when I do my stamps, these are hand drawn, which means that they're not completely symmetrical. Okay, so you do have to bear that in mind, that the stamps are not completely symmetrical. So you're never going to be able to line them up completely. They're never going to be perfect, but that's one of the beauties, I think, of the stamps. Okay, so just going in. So I'm just doing my last one, and this is just a really simple design. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm now going to change to one of the other stamps. Okay, so I'm going to change to this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my book round so that you can, because it's much easier. Let me just make sure that that is in view for you. It is. So I'm turning the book sideways. I just find it much easier to work. So what I'm doing is I'm taking one of the scallop stamps now. So what I'm doing, remember again, it's not going to perfectly line up because it's not completely symmetrical. So get that out of your head, okay? And what I'm doing, I'm almost making it look as if it's going to overlap just slightly. And then that should give me a nice close stamped image, okay? So you can see that's quite close in there. It's not completely touching. I don't want it to be touching. It won't ever line up completely because they're not completely symmetrical, as I've said, because they are hand drawn. Okay, so I'm doing the same again. I'm going in as if it's overlapping just slightly in between. And there you go. I prefer to work this way so that I can see the stamp as I'm putting it down. Okay, so again. And then another one this side. And don't worry, if the gaps are not perfect, it doesn't matter. You know, you can see there, that one's closer on that side than it is on that side. But in the overall design of the page, it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. So don't get hung up on that. What I'm also doing is I'm making sure that I go off the page. It's a real mistake, especially when you're working with black, because that black stands out so much. It's a real mistake to not go off of the edge of the page. And if one of my circles had been halfway and I would have had a gap at the bottom, I would have made sure that I'd put another one on the other side. Okay, So I'm just going in this side as well, just to make sure that that's nice and even. So now it looks like the design's going off the edge of the page. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it round, and I'm just going to do that same thing. And do it going the other way. Okay. So again, same thing, I'm just lining it up as if it's slightly overlapping, because I know that there's that gap where the rubber's been cut. I'm just going in and just stamping all the way along, so I'm stamping the design. And then what you're seeing is you're starting to see all the colours coming through the stamping. Obviously, the more delicate the stamp, the more you're going to see those colours coming through. So I'm just going in. And as I said, for the overall page, it really doesn't matter if the stamping isn't perfect. Okay, so I'm just going along. More to do. And one more, so we'll just go off the page. Perfect. Okay, so what I could do now, I could go in and I could take another stamp and I could add another layer going along. Okay, do I want to do that? Do you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. Why not? So I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. So I'm just going in with one of the smaller scallop stamps, and exactly the same thing again. I'm just going to line it up in between, and I'm just going to stamp. And I'm going to do that all the way along. Okay. And there's so many different variations that you can use. You know, we're going in a straight line down our journal, but lots and lots of variations using this stamp. So I'm just going to turn that around. As I said, I prefer to work towards myself. I prefer to work with the point towards myself so that I can see what's going on there. So I can see how close it is. Going in, all the way along. And again. So this time I don't need to stamp off the edge of the page because there is that natural break in between, so that kind of ties in, so it looks fine. Okay, so we've got that done. I'm just going to give that a quick blast just to make sure that it's dry. I just want to make sure that that is completely dry, that ink, before I go in with any more paint. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in with a contrast colour, or one that I think is going to stand out. Now black and white will always stand out, obviously black will always stand out. I'm going to use a blue this time. Let me just find a brush. So I'm going to choose a turquoise blue because it's my favourite, and I know that it's going to go with all of these colours and it's going to stand out against all of these colours. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start going in now, and I'm going to paint around the outside of the design. Okay, I'm not worrying if it's perfect because I know that I'm going to be putting pen work, so if it isn't 100% perfect, it's not going to be an issue. But obviously, as much as possible, I want to follow that line. And if you've got bigger gaps and you prefer to draw a pencil line around the outside and then follow the pencil line, then by all means you can follow the pencil line. So I'm just going to go in, and you can be a little bit more careful than I am. Obviously I'm doing this on camera and I don't want you to be sitting there forever waiting for me to finish painting. I don't worry too much about my colour being completely opaque. Of course I want to block out the background, but I don't mind if you can see bits of it coming through either. So I'm just going to go in and just block that off. So in effect what I'm doing is blocking off the outside edge to make those centre colours stand out. So I'm just going in. I know it's a little bit boring watching me do this, but you get the idea. Okay. Luckily I've not given myself too much to have to fill in, which is good. So at least you don't have to watch me for too long. So but you can see the effect you're getting. All of a sudden it's blocking out that outer edge, which makes that centre design really stand out. So I'm hoping you can see the idea. And obviously if you want to do a second coat and you want to completely block it out, then of course you can. I quite like that you can still see some of what's going on underneath. So I'm just going to, a little bit more there. Okay. And then of course we need to do the same on the other side. So I'm just going to go along the other side. And just block that out. As I said, you can take longer to do yours. I don't want to be here all day with you watching me paint. So let's just going to go in. So you can see this centre's really starting to stand out now. So I've purposely gone for, I picked out 6 colours that I knew were going to go really well together in the first place. So I picked out, it's the paper artsy colours that I'm using. I picked out Slimed, which is the green colour, Prawn, which is the lighter pink, Bougainvillea, which is the darker pink, Electric Violet, which is the purple, and Banana, which is the yellow, and then I picked the cerulean. So I knew that I was going to use one of those colours as my block out colour. So I just made sure that I didn't use, I knew that all the colours worked well together, and I just made sure that I didn't use that on my background so that it gives maximum impact. So last little bit. Nearly there. Okay. And obviously you can use a bigger or smaller brush, whatever you're comfortable with, but I find a flat brush works really well for this. So just give it another little coat over the top. Just block it out a little bit more. But as I said, that's preference. So there, okay, so you can see we now have a painted journal page. So, you know, I'm not sure how long we've been going so far, but you can see really, really quickly I've got a journal page going on, okay? And I could just go in and add some words, and I could leave it at that. I'm not going to do that because I like to add pen work. I always think pen work is the one thing that makes all the difference to a page. So I am going to get this dry, and then I'm going to start adding some pen work. So just give that a little coat there. Okay, so I'm just going to give that a quick dry so that it's nice and dry, ready to work on. Okay, so that's nice and dry. So what I need to do now, bear with me a second, is I need to pull out some paint pens. So you can use Posca pens, you can use gel pens, whatever you happen to have, okay? But you can, you can pretty much use any. I'm going to pick out a few. White always works well. You can use your gel pens as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding some detail with my gel. I'm going to use paint pens, a mix of paint pens and gel pens. So I'm just going to start going in. Let's make sure that we're nice and primed. And I could go in and start adding, let's have a think, what can I do? Okay, so I'm a big fan of dots. So I could start going in and adding some dots around the centre. This is why I wanted to make sure that my inks and everything are dry, because I want it to stand out. I don't want it to be soaking up the colour of the ink. So I'm just going in and just starting to add some detail, and obviously I'll do the same thing on each area. I'll do the same thing. So I'm just going to go into all of these. And just start adding some detail. And obviously I say this all the time, but when it comes to pen work, you can add as much or as little as you like, because some people love to do pen work, some people can't stand to do pen work. So really is completely up to you how much you add. So you can see I'm just starting to go in. I'm just adding some around some of the designs, and it's really going to start, especially when you use white, it's just going to make everything seem to pop out. Okay, so you can see I'm not even being too neat and tidy. You can be a lot more neat and tidy than I am. But you can see, even doing this one, that white pen, let's grab another one. White pens always run out when you want to use them, of course. So, but straight away you can see the difference between this and this as you're starting to add in white. And there's loads with these stamps as well. There's loads of little opportunities in the stamps themselves, so you can see there's lots of little places that your white stamping, white pen work I should say, can be added. You can go in with coloured pen work as well, so we've made a start there, but you could go in with coloured pen work as well. So I've picked out a blue Posca pen, which is similar to the colour on the outside. It's not exactly the same, but it's similar. And I could go in and I could add that. And then what it's going to do, because it's a similar colour to that outer colour, it's going to look as if it's looking through. So just going in. So I think you guys get the idea. I don't want you to sit here and watch me faffing about trying to get pens to work, because of course they don't want to work when you're on film. So I'm going to carry on with this. You can also add splatters as well. Obviously, splatters over the top is going to look really cool, and you could pick out any one of the colours that you've used in your background. So if I picked out, say I picked out the yellow and splattered all over, that's going to really stand out. Or you could pick, you know, I've got fluorescent Poscas, so I could choose something like that and splatter with that all over, which I will do. So I'm not gonna make you sit and watch me do all the pen work. I will post a photo and some close-ups of the finished page once I've finished the pen work, but you get the idea. So it's the stamp set I've used again is ETS 34. So if you've already bought it, obviously you can go away and do the pages. If you've not already bought it, you can contact your local retailer. If they don't have it in stock at the moment, they can order it for you. So by all means, give them a shout if you want to get hold of that stamp set. I'm going to leave you now, guys, and hope you have a really good day, and I look forward to seeing your pages in the group.